Hi there, welcome back to my training series in understanding EMV. This is the 17th video in the series, and in this video we will be covering uh, the first step of the EMV transaction. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so first let's do a recap of where we are. The scenario is obviously we've got Bob who's down at his local comic book store buying a pair of socks as a birthday gift for his wife Sally. The teller has rung up the purchase and has asked Bob, Mr. Bob, how would you like to pay for your purchase? To which Bob replied, I'm going to pay by card. So the teller, pulls out the POS device, and this is where we have the first step, which is technology selection. So in our example, obviously, we've chosen to do an EMV transaction, and this is a contact or a DIPT or a chip insert EMV transaction. The card was physically inserted into the device. Once it was done, we then went into a phase where, the terminal created a candidate list, which presented a set of options to the cardholder, to Bob, asking him, which of the supported applications available on the card would he like to use, and Bob chose the highest priority one, which in this case is his credit card. So once this virtual card or application was selected, all further communication would now happen between the terminal and the selected application. So we then go into step 3, where the communication starts. There's been an exchange of data between the terminal and the card. Okay. We then went to a process called offline data authentication, or card authentication methodology. And basically, this is a cryptographic process using asymmetric keys, and the purpose of this is to authenticate that the card is valid. That it's not an attempt at cloning the card or it being a counterfeit card. That this card is a genuine card issued by the genuine issuer. Okay, so once we did that, we now come through to the content of today's video, which is processing restrictions. Right, so what is processing restrictions? Okay, processing restrictions phase of the transaction checks several of the tags of the card. So basically, the purpose of this is to validate whether the criteria present in this transaction match what the product rules are for the card and for the terminal, right? So things that we would check during processing restrictions is the application expired? Okay, so is the date of the transaction, is it after the date of expiry of the application? Okay, so the application expiry date, tag 5F24 on the card, is checked and compared to the terminal date. Okay, is the application effective? So basically what we're saying is, let's have a look at the application effective date tag on the card, tag 5F25, and let's compare it to the terminal date, right? Let's see, whether the date is before the effective date of the application, or indeed whether it's in a state after the application effective date, which will make it valid, right? Does the card contain a valid application version? I've just put this in the training for completeness sake, but it currently serves no useful purposes. Okay, this was a legacy check that was done on the early implementations of EMV. None of the later applications use this, as far as I'm aware. I can guarantee you that Mastercard and Visa do not do any significant processing on this check. Okay, and yeah, so generally the action codes for this kind of for this occurrence is usually set to ignore. Okay, so basically take no action if this is flagged during the transaction, right? We then look at application usage control, tag 9F07. I'm hoping you guys do remember this from the issuing section we did a few videos back. Okay, and so we want to check if certain conditions present in the transaction are valid. And so things that we would check as part of this check is the transaction type valid for the application? So we know, is it a cash transaction? Are we purchasing goods? Are we paying for services? Is the device type valid? So is this an ATM? Is it a non-ATM type terminal? The geographical location, is this a domestic transaction or is it an international transaction? And okay, so if just to recap, so this is what the application usage control tag looks like, right? So it's a 2-byte value that, if once you convert from hex to binary, uh, these are the conditions that are catered for. So, uh, is this card valid for domestic cash transactions? Is it valid for international cash transactions? Domestic goods, international goods, domestic services, international services, and may the card be used at ATMs and may it be used at terminals other than ATMs. Okay, and then if you look at byte 2, we talk about domestic and international cashback. So basically, these are the things that we check for. Obviously, you guys are familiar with application usage control because we had covered it in the previous video. Okay, let's have a look a little bit. Let's look at the low-level transaction log. Let's look at the conversation between the card and the terminal. Uh, using our specialized tools to sort of better understand what the conversation looks like. Right, so we've got the terminal which has issued the read record command for processing instructions or for the data it requires, and the ICC has responded, right? And I mean, you can look at it. There's a tag 5F25, there's tag 5F24, there's a tag 9F07, which is application usage control, etc. Right? So I mean, this is the hex. If you want to look at it closer, let's have a look at the data analysis. So there we've got data analysis, and then basically 5F25 length of 3, and the value therefore would be 040101, right? And that's your application effective date, right? Year, month, day. Okay. Application expiry date, year, month, day, 31st December 2009. Application usage control, basically you can see it's set to FF00, which means this card supports all of the conditions stipulated in byte 1 of application usage control and none of the conditions in byte 2. Okay, and then you've got the application primary, you got basically just some other data as well that the terminal would require in the transaction. And at the end of this read record command, we can see it was successful and all the data that was requested has been passed through. Okay. Now the important thing to note here is the results of all of these checks that we've discussed individually are actually recorded in TVR, right? So, and you'll find them in TVR in byte 2 bits 8 to 5. Okay. Right. So that brings us to the end of step 5 and obviously to the end of this video. In our next video, we'll be looking at step 6, and step 6 relates to cardholder verification. Okay. Thank you for spending the time with me, and I look forward to catching you guys in the next video. Cheers, bye-bye.